Hi everyone, welcome back. Let's write some more Leetcode today. Today we are solving maximum absolute sum of any subarray. So I think the title pretty much tells us what this problem will be about. We want to return the maximum sum from any subarray, except that it's the absolute sum. So it can be the largest negative integer or the largest positive integer. So we would return the maximum between the most negative integer and the most positive integer. And if it happens to be a negative integer, we want to make sure that we take away the negative sign and change it to a positive sign. So if you look at this example, the largest subarray would be right here. So it would be 5, 2, and 3. And in this example, the largest would be -8, but we need to turn to +8. So we return 8. So now that we have seen some examples, let's get to how we can solve this problem. So how we can solve this problem is we will loop through this list and we will have a positive variable and a negative variable to keep track of the most positive subarray at each iteration and the most negative subarray at each iteration. So how can we do that? Well, let's break it down. If I tell you to find the maximum subarray here, I think you can know that it would be -5 on its own. You wouldn't need the 2. So when we are iterating through this and keeping track with a negative variable, whenever the number on negative is greater than 0, like right here in the first iteration, we would just set it back to 0. We wouldn't really need this in the subarray if it's ever positive because we're trying to find the most negative number. And similarly, so let's say it was -2 and 5. If we want to add -2 to positive, whenever the positive variable is negative, we just set it back to 0. And as we can see between these two, the maximum subarray would be 5. And we wouldn't need the -2 to add it here, because then if we don't set it back to 0 and we add 5, it would be 3, and that would be wrong. So that is the main catch. So yeah, what we would do is we would iterate through this array, and that would be how we would keep track of positive and negative. And we would add every number at each iteration to positive or negative. If positive is ever negative, just set it back to 0. If negative is ever positive, just set it back to 0. And at the end of each iteration, we want to update the result, which would be the maximum between the current result, positive and negative. At the very end, we can return result. So let's go through this example. So first we'll look at 2. We will add 2 to positive and negative, but set negative back to 0 since it's a positive number. And the result, the largest we have right now is 2. Now we look at -5. If we add this, it will become -3, and we set it back to 0. Now negative would be -5. The largest number right now we have is -5, but we need to take the absolute value and make it +5. Now we add 1, so positive become 1. Negative would become -4. The result, the largest, is still 5. Now we add -4. It's -3, but set it to 0. Add -4, it's -8. Now we need to update the result. The largest we can make right now with the subarray is 8, which would be these 3 numbers. Now come to the next one. Add +3, become -5. 8 is still the largest. Next one, this becomes 1. Add this, it's become -7. 8 is still the largest, so we return 8. And the time complexity would be O of n, where n is the number of elements in the array, because we are looping through the entire array. And the space complexity would be O of 1, because we are not using any extra space. So now let's get to the coding part. So first, we will set up the initial variables, result, positive, negative, all set to 0. And then we will loop through nums. So we will add n to positive, but if it is less than 0, then we will set positive back to 0 or reset it to 0, and we will do the same with the negative variable. Negative, add numbers to it, but if it is greater than 0, then we will set negative back to 0. And then after each iteration, we would check the max of result positive or the absolute value of the negative number. And in the end, we can just return result. Let's see if it works. Okay, perfect. Hope this was helpful. Thank you all for watching. If you have any other questions or comments, feel free to leave it down in the comments section. And I hope to see you all again soon.